Sometimes people just need to keep their mouth shut. And instead of open it up to make them look like a complete fool. Unfortunately, that's what I'm going to have to do because someone decided they wanted to open up their mouth and just spew out just nonsense. And being the troll for truth, I got to say something. And in this case,
let's get ready to rumble.
Sometimes it's hard to face reality. Oh, oh, even though you might get mad at me. Oh, oh, sometimes it's hard to face reality.
What's going on, YouTube? This is Logan Oren, and today I'm doing a response to a video made by, I don't know what the guy's name is, but the name of his channel is With All Due Offense. And he did a video a couple of days ago, and it was titled The Worst Superhero Ever. And the reason why I want to respond to this video is because in the video, he goes on to talk about how Captain America is the worst superhero ever. Now, I'm not really a Captain America fan. I'm not at all. Even though I've got like a couple of things for Captain America. I have the figurines, the Captain America figurine right there, and then the one over here where he has the motorcycle. I walked in the store, I saw them, I had to get them, because I am a comic book fan. So the right here, that's a piggy bank, and it was $5 at Walmart. So like I said again, comic book fan. So I picked it up. But I'm not that I am, and I guess you could say I am defending Captain America. I'm defending the actual character of him. Now, this guy, and I think his last name is Davis, but I can't remember. I got turned on to his channel a while back, and he's a comedian, and so a lot of his, or all of his, or the vast majority of his videos that he puts out are, comedies. They're to make you laugh. There's a couple that I've seen that he tries to make that have been on the serious tip, but he kind of maybe throws a little bit of sarcasm, humor in there. But overall, he's a comedian, and I really enjoyed when I first started watching his videos, and I still do. So it's not like I don't like his channel anymore. But what the problem that I have with him is that when he reminds me of Martin Lawrence and Chris Rock. Martin Lawrence is one of my favorite, if not my favorite, comedian / actor that's out there, and I enjoy a lot of Chris Rock stuff. But one of the things that started to turn me off from them is that I saw that a lot of their comedy had to do with just kind of bashing white people. And yes, you've got this racial nature in comedy that there's a place for, and I'm not knocking them fully for it, but it got to the point where I felt like they were overdoing it. And with this guy, I felt like he started to put out some videos where his intent really wasn't to be funny. It was just to trash white people, or his intent was to be funny to other black people by trashing white people. And so when I saw this video and I watched it, it's not fully because of the fact that he is kind of ragging on Captain America because of the racial nature, but because he's completely wrong when it comes to Captain America and the way that he was written within the Marvel Cinematic Universe. So, I want to go through and I want to look at and show you and kind of break down his video on why Captain America is the worst hero ever. So let's take a look at him.
Captain America is trash. The only reason he became athletic or anything at all is because he got stuck with a needle. All right, he was chosen because he couldn't pass the test.
Okay, that is true. He couldn't pass the test. He's not this high physical specimen, but it wasn't just because he couldn't pass the test. They could have easily found people who were a lot more physically enhanced to have taken the serum. But there was more to it than just that aspect that he just was weak. And they were trying to build someone up to be this super soldier. So what are some of the reasons why he was chosen to be Captain America?
Thank you. So, we want to go overseas, kill some Nazis. Excuse me? Dr. Abraham Erskine. I represent the Strategic Scientific Reserve. Steve Rogers.
Where are you from?
Queens, 73rd Street and Utopia Parkway. Before that, Germany. This is troubleshoot. Where are you from, Mr. Rogers? Is it New Haven or Paramos? 5 exams in 5 different cities.
That might not be the right file.
No, it's not the exams I'm interested in. It's the 5 tries. But you didn't answer my question. Do you want to kill Nazis?
Is this a test?
Yes.
I don't want to kill anyone. I don't like bullies. I don't care where they're from.
Well, there are already so many big men fighting this war. Maybe what we need now is a little guy. Huh? I can offer you a chance. Only a chance.
I'll take it.
Good.
So even here we see that there's this drive. We see why he wants to enlist, which was part of the big reason also why he was chosen. Or how about this reason?
You're not really thinking about picking Rogers, are you?
I wasn't just thinking about it. It's a clear choice.
You brought a 90-pound asthmatic onto my army base. I let it slide. I thought, what the hell? Maybe it'd be useful to you, like a gerbil. Never thought you'd pick him. Stick a needle in that kid's arm. It's going to go right through him.
Come on, girls.
Look at that. He's making me cry.
I am looking for qualities beyond the physical.
Do you know how long it took to set up this project? All the grubbling I had to do in front of Senator What's-His-Name's committees?
Yes, I know. I am well aware of your efforts.
Then throw me a bone. Hodge passed every test we gave him. He's big, he's fast, he obeys orders, he's a soldier.
He's a bully.
You don't win wars with niceness, Doctor. You win wars with guts. Grenade! Oh, get away! Get back! Dummy grenade. All clear. Back in formation.
Is this a test?
He's still skinny.
Okay, so we clearly see that in this example, this is something that Tony would have never done, that Stark would have never done, or probably many of the other Avengers just at first sight. Yes, there was nothing special about him. He did not have these organic abilities like, some of the other heroes in the, I guess you could say in the MCU, but even though he didn't have these powers, these abilities, he was ready to sacrifice his life to save the people around him. And they're not even at war. They're training to go to war, but he's ready to put his life on the line for other people to be safe, to be taken, to be able to then carry on and fight the war that needs to be fought. So if we're not going to take this reason, Okay, then how about another reason, which truly is the final, I guess, point on why Steve Rogers was chosen and why it needed to be someone like him.
Can I ask you a question? Just one? Why me? I suppose that is the only question that matters. The serum amplifies everything that is inside, so good becomes great, bad becomes worse. This is why you were chosen. Because a strong man who has known power all his life may lose respect for that power, but a weak man knows the value of strength and knows compassion.
So there's that element. This is why Steve Rogers was the definite prospect to be in this project. And yes, part of it had to do because he was weak, but he just explains on what the serum does. And if you were to give it to someone who, if you were to give it to someone who was not in his situation, you run the risk. Not that it would happen, but you run the risk of someone then taking abuse or abusing that power. So everything that was good about Steve Rogers, by him taking the serum, it made it better. And before it talks about, forget his name, but the guy who becomes Red Skull, and he's telling how when he took it and the serum worked, but he was not ready. It wasn't a problem because of the serum. It was a problem because Red Skull was not ready to take it. He was already obsessed with power and being powerful, and that was important to him. So when he took the serum, everything that desire for power was enhanced in him. It became more pronounced of his character. But Steve Rogers he was the embodiment of what was good natured in a person, and his courage to put himself on the line, to do what's right. Those things were then enhanced in him by the serum.
Becoming more athletic, I mean, it may impress you, but I watch baseball. I see that all the time. Then he becomes the most
So, all right, it clearly did not just become more. He didn't just become more athletic. There was a lot that happened. No, he didn't get the powers of flight. He could not shoot these psionic or plasmic beams out of his eyes or his body. He did not have those, but he was more, I guess you could say, than just a juiced up athlete, because these are a couple of things that a juiced up athlete could not do. So if we were looking at things, could a juiced up athlete, like let's say A-Rod, could they do this? Or could Barry Bonds survive this?
Too busy. Is he wearing a parachute? No, he wasn't.
Or if Mark McGwire was juiced up, could he survive this?
Roger, get that door open. You got nowhere to go.
Now, there's another reason why he was able to survive that. And if you are a true comic book fan or you are a Captain America fan, then you know why he survived that. and why he didn't get hurt. And if you know, put it in the comment section below. If I had something to give as a prize, I would. But I just want to see if anybody knows why he was able to survive that fall and not get hurt. But even if it were someone who was just at peak physical condition, would not have been able to just walk away from that fall and that landing as easily as Steve Rogers was able to do himself. So yes, he was not able to, he doesn't have these intrinsic organic powers that some people have, or these abilities that people have within themselves. But how many of them didn't just get lucky themselves? Bruce Banner, as the Hulk, he would not have had the abilities that he had if it were not for the fact that he accidentally was hit by the gamma radiation. And Peter Parker, even though he's not in the movie, but Peter Parker would not have had the powers if he had not been bitten by the radioactive spider. Now, you can make an argument for someone like Hawkeye or Black Widow, because they did they went through the training, and everything that they were able to do, they earned that on their own. But Tony Stark, yes, he was a brilliant man. He was smart, and he had the money to be able to do what he did. But if he was not in the same situation where he came from a wealthy father who gave him the same resources that he had, would he have been able to do what he did? But regardless, Steve Rogers was not the only one who just all of a sudden got powers from, or his abilities from, something else. The vast majority of the people in the MCU got their powers because they were lucky. Okay, they were fortunate. And the probably only one who you maybe could make an argument that are superhuman would be Scarlet Witch or Quicksilver, even though he's dead in the film. But everyone else, Scarlet Witch is a mutant, so she was born with those abilities. She's the only one that could boast about her abilities and about the fact that she has powers. But no one else. Everyone else, the vast majority of the people, Black Panther, gets his abilities from the plant. How many people just happen to luck into or be given their abilities from something else, or from an accident, or a chance of luck? So that's a mute point. It's a horrible point to throw at why Steve Rogers or Captain America is not special, because everything that he was able to do came from a syringe.
Then he becomes the most athletic person in the world. He's able to change the world. He's supposed to be this caring, giving guy, right? And cares about everybody. America is what he cares about. You became Captain America during the Jim Crow era, my friend. You didn't help no black people. You thought that the way the world was, you care about everybody. You have the power to change everything. You didn't think to fight for black people at all.
All right, that's just dumb. It's so dumb. I don't. It's hard to even talk about it. Okay, first of all, I don't recall anyone saying that he'd be able to change the world, and what he was able to do, what his abilities were going to allow him to be able to change the world. He was able to do great things, and he was told by the doctor who. The German doctor who gives him his abilities, to make sure he stay a good man. And the problem that I have with him, and he's saying, well, you became Captain America during the Jim Crow era, and because you didn't help no black people, then that is put on you. Why is that a trash argument to make? Because Steve became Captain America when he enlisted into the army. Yeah, Jim Crow was going on at that time, but as soon as he became Captain America, he was shipped off to war. He didn't get, they didn't send him home. They didn't inject him and then release him and then and be like, hey, you go home, relax, chill, and do what you do. No, he was shipped off to war. So he had to go and be part of the war effort. So he didn't have that opportunity to be able to do anything on the in the world, in the country, to be able to help anything that may have been going on. So America was at war. Okay, they were at war, and not only were they at war, but the priority was with him, especially being a soldier. And what they did was for him to be a soldier. Okay, they were at war with probably one of the if not the biggest threat to the United States, to this country, since England and the Revolutionary War. So when he became Captain America, I'm sorry, going and dealing with social issues within the United States was not the priority. He had his orders and he went and was shipped off to war. Now, so it's clear he didn't have time to deal with that. He didn't have time to deal with social issues. Now, would he have done some things like that? Would he have not helped out with those situations when the war was over? We don't know. Why don't we know? Because he didn't even make it through the war. So he was frozen during the war. Okay, before the war was even, he crashed, his plane crashed, and he was frozen before the war was even over. And by the time he comes out of it and he's unfrozen, Jim Crow's over. And there's not then when he comes back, now they're dealing with a totally new threat. And this is not just a country threat, a threat to the United States. This is a threat to the world. So it's so stupid to sit there and say that you didn't do anything to help Black people during Jim Crow. He was a soldier in the Army. He became Captain America. They shipped him off to the war. Not stay in America and do stuff for people in America. At that point in time, big threat to the United States. And if the United States didn't win the war, then it would not have mattered, because the Germans or the Japanese or whoever were in that group, I forget what they're called, they would have come in and they would have been doing the same thing, if not worse, to Black people than what the United States were doing. So very, very stupid mindset and an argument to make on why he didn't do anything during Jim Crow. He wasn't around. He was at war. He was doing his job. So hopefully, when he came back, maybe he would have done something. But like I said, we don't know, because he never made it back during that time.
Then you end up frozen for years. You come back to the future and you're Mr. All America again. America is the only thing that matters until your best friend of old shows up. Now it's forget America again. You start breaking the law to keep your friend from going in jail, who's killing people. He's murdering people.
Okay, yes, Bucky was killing people, but he also knew that Bucky would not be doing this kind of stuff. He wouldn't be killing people if he wasn't in his right state of mind. And he also knew that if they went after him, that they would kill him just to capture him. And this is his boy. This is his friend. And who wouldn't do what they could to help out their friend, to save their life, to keep them from being killed, or to keep them from going down for something that they didn't even know that they were doing? So that argument doesn't really, come out. Yes, he's going against the U.S., okay, but I don't think at any point in time do we have anything about Steve Rogers to let us know that he is 100% completely loyal to the laws of the United States. We don't see that at all. And if anything, we see that he is the opposite because he understands that governments can be corrupt. He understands that laws can be corrupt. And so he was not fighting on the side of the law. He was fighting on the side of what was right. And sometimes it's really not right to, if someone goes to your, if you have a friend and your friend, let's say a terrorist, comes to them and says, I want you to take this bomb and plant this bomb in this school. And if you don't, I'm going to kill your whole family, or I'm going to do this to you. And so your friend goes and does that. Okay. Do you think that your friend is completely accountable for the fact that of his actions if he goes and he takes that bomb and puts it at a school or puts it in a mall or puts it in a group of people and sets it off? Yeah, he could have chosen to just be like, well, you're just going to have to kill my family. But if that's the case, most people probably wouldn't. Most people would do whatever they could to save their family. And how many times do we see people in the hood, people that they know that Ray Sean hurt, that shot up a club, but they're not going to tell the police where Ray Sean is. So his allegiance wasn't to the law or to the United States. His allegiance was to what was right and what was good.
Then he kept trying to be the leader of the Avengers, even though Tony Stark is clearly the smartest man in the world. Just because you got stuck with a dirty needle 70 years ago does not mean that you're smarter than the smartest man in the world. It just made you faster and stronger, my guy.
All right, so being the smartest person does not make you a better leader. Just like being the strongest person on a football team doesn't make you the best player on the team, and it doesn't make you even to the point as a good captain of the team. Tony Stark basically spent, just because he was smart doesn't mean that he was a great leader or that he could be a great leader. That doesn't make you a good leader. Okay, is that a tool? Is intelligence a tool that can make you a good leader? Yes, but just that alone doesn't make you a good leader. Tony Stark spent Iron Man. He spent Iron Man 2. He spent the first Avengers. He spent Avengers: Age of Ultron, Captain America: Civil War, and Avengers: Infinity War. He spent all of those movies proving that he was a terrible leader. All of that, and we see it in every single decision that he makes. So yeah, if I were Steve, I'd be trying to hold on to that team as much as I could to keep them together, because in the end, who tore up the Avengers? It was Tony Stark. And it was what Tony Stark decided to do. The poor decisions that he made is what made him, is basically what made him a poor choice for why he was not a good leader. Great, perfect example on why he was not a good leader is...
Oh, that's Charles Spencer, by the way. He's a great kid. Computer engineering degree, 3.6 GPA, had a floor-level gig, an Intel plan for the fall. But first, he went to put a few miles on his soul before he parked it behind the desk, see the world, maybe be of service. Charlie didn't want to go to Vegas or Fort Lauderdale, which is what I would do. He didn't go to Paris or Amsterdam. Sounds fun. He decided to spend his summer building sustainable housing for the poor, guess where? Sokovia. He wanted to make a difference, I suppose. I mean, we won't know because we dropped the building on him while we were kicking ass. There's no decision-making process here. We need to be put in check. Whatever form that takes, I'm game.
And part of the problem is because he needed to be in check. He needed to be put in check. But no one really, a lot of people didn't really point out that issue, that all of these things happen. Age of Ultron, Sokovia, or whatever, however you say the name of that place, that happened because of Stark's poor decision making. Because when he should have done the right thing, he didn't. He chose to take things on his own, to make the decisions by himself, and he killed a lot of people because of what him and Banner did. So this is why Stark is not a good leader. If he was so smart, he should have known that what he did was stupid. He should have known to have dealt with it in a better way, to have consorted with his team, but he chose to not do that. What kind of leader does not do that? What kind of good leader doesn't do that? Clearly, Tony Stark was not a good leader. And another reason why Tony Stark is not a good leader is because he cannot take accountability for what he's done. Everything that happened that he's talking about in Sokovia, the kid dying, with Ultron, and everything else is because he could not take responsibility for his actions. And he would not talk to his team about it. He just, let them be in the dark. If he were a good leader, then he would be talking to his team. He would have been talking to Thor. Thor understood that he should not have been messing around with the Mind Stone like he was. And because of that, you had a bot that becomes Ultron that tries to destroy the world. But if he had just told Thor, who knows about these things, he knows about the Infinity Stones, and he knows what they can do and what their power level is. But he would not do that. A good leader would have done that. But Tony Stark is not a good leader because he refused to make decisions that a good leader would make.
Than the smartest man in the world. It just made you faster and stronger, my guy. He's the smartest. See, what also had to be inside that needle was this thing called privilege, because you think you are just greater than everybody just because you're you. I don't know what that is. So after the first invasion, Tony goes, let's put a barrier around the earth so we can better protect ourselves. And then Mr. High and Mighty is like, nah, let's not do that. You're infringing on the rights of all the humans on earth, and everybody should be free to do whatever they want to do. Is it crazy that this nigga all of a sudden has this mindset, but when he became Captain America, niggas was dealing with Jim Crow? Where was the attitude then that everybody should be having their rights and being equal and shit? You're a big-ass hypocrite. No, it's what he wants at the time is the only thing that matters. He is not a good hero.
So, first off, that's not even true. What he just said. I don't even know what movie you were watching, because that dialogue never even happened. Captain America, Steve Rogers, never said any of that. So that's not even true. Because when Stark brings up this idea of having this armor around the world, you have to remember him and Banner, they did this without telling the rest of the team. So because he knew that the world would, he knew that they would have a problem with it. That's why he didn't say anything. That's why he didn't talk to the team, the rest of the Avengers, about it. Captain America never talked about it infringing on the rights of people on the earth. He never talked about it. Never talked about the ability to choose or anything like that. So this is not even what happened. So you must have been watching another movie or another set of movies, because that shows you don't even know what happened in the movie. So so this is how that conversation pretty much went down.
It is funny. It's a hoot that you don't get why we need this.
Tony, maybe this might not be the time.
Really? That's it. You just roll over, show your belly every time somebody snarls.
Only when I've created a murder bot.
We didn't. We weren't even close. Were we close to an interface?
Well, you did something right. And you did it right here. The Avengers were supposed to be different than S.H.I.E.L.D.
Anybody remember when I carried a nuke through a wormhole?
No, it's never come up.
Save New York?
Never heard that.
Recall that? A hostile alien army came charging through a hole in space. We're standing 300 feet below it.
We're the Avengers. We can bust arms dealers all the live long day, but that up there, that's the Endgame. How are you guys planning on beating them? Together. We'll lose. And we'll do that together too. Thor's right. Ultron's calling us out. I'd like to find him before he's ready for us. The world's a big place. Start making it smaller.
So this is how that conversation went down. Captain America mentioned nothing at all about rights, freedoms, infringing on anything, or choosing rights to choose. His argument was that they were supposed to be different than S.H.I.E.L.D. They were supposed to be an organization or an outfit that was supposed to be different. S.H.I.E.L.D. was supposed to basically be that first line of defense, to be able to handle certain things, to be able to be the first, okay? That's why they had the Tesseract, because they were trying to build weapons. But that's not what the Avengers were for. So what was the Avengers for? Why were they created?
Yes. We were going to build an arsenal with the Tesseract. I never put all my chips on that number, though, because I was playing something even riskier. There was an idea. Stark knows this. Called the Avengers Initiative. The idea was to bring together a group of remarkable people, see if they could become something more. See if they could work together when we needed them to fight the battles that we never could. Phil Coulson died still believing in that idea. In heroes.
So that's how that conversation went down between Stark and Steve Rogers. It had nothing to do with freedoms or rights. When Tony Stark brings out the idea or mentions the idea of having an armor around the world, not a barrier around the world, but when he mentions that, then Steve answers by basically, Stark asked why. How do we plan to beat that? How do we plan to stop something like the Chitauri coming back, an alien invasion? How do we stop it? And Steve's answer was that we do it together. Win or lose. We'll win together or we'll lose together. And we see that in the end, that's why they lost. In Infinity War, that's why they lost, because they weren't together. And whose fault was it that they weren't together? It was Tony Stark's. And so if anything, let's say if we want to talk about his argument and him saying that Captain America is that he was all about freedoms and infringing rights on people and making choices. Well, this is the only other time that he talks about choices and being able to make choices, but it wasn't because, and it didn't have anything to do with the decisions that I guess would have been made during Jim Crow. He's talking about the decisions that people make, okay, within, I guess, basically within their lives, but when with decisions that had to be made within the team, and what was best for the team and where they played and fit in the world.
Someone dies on your watch, you don't give up. Who's ever given up? We are for not taking responsibility for our actions.
And that's the problem, that Tony would not take responsibility for his actions. Everyone else was willing to do that, but Tony wasn't. And that's why he's saying, basically, I need to be put in check because I can't make good decisions. And no one, but the reason why is because his team could not stop him, because he made decisions on his own without his team.
This document just shifts the blame.
Sorry, Steve, that is dangerously arrogant. This is the United Nations we're talking about. It's not the World Security Council. It's not SHIELD. It's not Hydra.
No, but it's run by people with agendas. Agendas change. That's good. That's why I'm here. When I realized my weapons were capable of in the wrong hands, I shut it down, stop manufacturing. We chose to do that. If we sign this, we surrender our right to choose. But if this panel sends us somewhere we don't think we should go, what if there's somewhere we need to go and they don't let us? We may not be perfect. The safest hands are still our own. If we don't do this now, it's going to be done to us later. That's the fact. That won't be pretty.
You're saying they'll come for me.
We would protect you.
And this was something that was and I know this is off the topic, and this was funny to me, because I'm thinking, who's going to stop you? He's saying, well, if we don't do it now, if we don't put ourselves in check now, they're going to do it later. Who was going to come in and take over and confound Vision and Thor and the Hulk and Scarlet? Who was going to do that? No one.
Maybe Tony's right. We have one hand on the wheel, we can still see her. Take it off.
Aren't you the same woman who told the government to kiss her ass a few years ago?
I'm reading the terrain. We have made some very public mistakes. We need to win their trust back.
Focus up. I'm sorry, did I just mishear you or did you agree with me?
Oh, I want to take it back.
No, you can retract it. Thank you.
So none of this had to do with him, like, all of a sudden having this desire for people to be able to have choices. And it is clear, and we can go back and forth, and I can say it and loop it millions and millions of times, that yes, all of this stuff he could not do during Jim Crow. And this was no reflection on his desire to be able to help people who are less fortunate. We know he doesn't like people being bullied. And we don't see in his history, that doesn't mean that it didn't happen, where he went to bat for Black people during Jim Crow. We don't see that as being something that happened, and we don't see it that it was something that didn't happen. But what we do know is that Steve Rogers did not like people who were taken advantage of and bullied, and he did not like he did not like governments who took advantage of their power and their ability to take over other people. And so if we know that he has this idea of governments being tyrannical and treating their people poorly, that he would also have the same desire for his own country to not treat Black people or other people poorly in that regards. But we just don't see that fleshed out in the movie. So we don't see it fleshed out in any of it, because those were social issues. And he's not, he was not designed, his character was not designed to deal with those kind of social issues. His character was brought out for the war efforts, to get people into supporting the United States war effort. And that's where all of his storylines, or the bulk of his storylines, came from, until all of that was over and he had to be revamped.
So because there's no barrier, Thanos kills half the universe.
And even if there was a barrier, okay, what the best that we're looking at from Stark's little arm around the world is basically what we see in Iron Man 3. And I'm sorry, I don't see that really helping. I see Thanos basically wiping away all of those machines and androids, wiping them all away like a bug on a windshield. So with something like Thanos bringing his people, his soldiers, his army to Earth to fight is not going to, now, yeah, it's possible that he could have come up with something better with time and with support. That's true, it could have. But if they get past that, you still have to deal with something else. And if that doesn't work, that's why you need the Avengers. Because S.H.I.E.L.D. would have taken it. S.H.I.E.L.D. should have been the barrier around the Earth. But we know how that happened. You know what happens after that.
And now he's looking at Tony like, can you find a way for us to go back in time? I thought you were the leader, dog.
Okay, so just so that you know, they already had a way to fix that. They already had a plan. And if you don't remember, the idea to go back in time in the past, that was Scott Lang's idea, who was Ant-Man. He came up with that idea. And after he pitched that idea to the Avengers, that's when they went to Tony Stark for help. Because, yeah, he was the first, I guess you could say he was the first choice. And if Marvel Studios was actually doing a pretty much of a decent job of writing for the Marvel Universe, Tony Stark would not have been the first choice. His first choice probably would have been, I would have to say, Reed Richards. Reed Richards is, or Mr. Fantastic, is probably the most brilliant mind in the Marvel Universe. But because there was trashy writing and trashy planning with Marvel and Marvel Studios and Disney, Reed Richards, as of yet, does not exist in this Marvel Universe. So he would have been the first choice, clearly. But because of this, they had to go to Banner, and because he was the next person. But even if they didn't go to Banner, they probably should have gone to definitely Bill Foster, because he's probably the second leading mind in quantum mechanics after Hank Pym. But unfortunately, he's gone. He was, he disappeared in the snap. So Bill Foster would have been the next person to go to. So yeah, it would have been important to have Tony Stark around, but he wasn't necessary. And we see that Banner was able to, Banner with Scott Lang were able to handle it. Now, it probably would have taken them a longer time to be able to get everything working and to figure everything out. But, I mean, it's time travel. Time is on their side. They would have figured it out. So we cannot sit here and say that they needed Tony Stark. They came back to Tony Stark because he was the only one that could help. No, they already had an idea that would work. And they just needed it to be fine-tuned to figure it out. And they had people to do that. So another fail.
Thought you was a smart guy. Now you realize you ain't smart. It's okay. Tony has a kid. He has his wife. He didn't really lose anything.
He lost a lot. Of course Tony lost something. He lost half of his team. Half of the life on Earth was lost because he was supposed to help to stop it. He lost. He lost Peter Parker, and he lost his ego, his pride. And then ultimately, he lost his fight. Tony lost a lot. We didn't walk away from that with more. Yes, he gained a daughter. He got married and he had a daughter, but he still lost something. And to see those losses that he had, to not see that, shows that you don't really pay attention to the movies and you're not paying attention to the characters. But we know the idea. He knew that they had a good shot with that idea. That's why he even bothered to tinker with the idea, because he realized what he lost. Tony Stark clearly had losses. He did lose things.
But he, of course, decides, because that's what a real hero does, decides he's going to put everything he loves on the line for everybody else. And they come back, they got to fight Thanos and all of this. This dude he's part of the fight or whatever. They win. Tony has to save them again by snapping and saving, the universe. Okay. So they're like, okay, but we got to send everything back in time. Black Widow is dead. Tony Stark is dead. They need him to now be the leader of the Avengers, which he always pretended to be. Nope. Went back in time and hooked up with his old girlfriend and left the world just to fend for itself in his absence.
Okay, so that's another, I guess, time that you've shown you apparently did not watch these movies, or you didn't pay attention, or you were watching maybe you're watching Justice League. But he did not leave the present time and leave them to fend for themselves. Clearly, well, we know that Peter Parker is back, or Spider-Man's back. You still have Bruce. You still have Hawkeye. You still have Black Panther. You still have the Guardians. You've got the Doctor Strange. You have all of these people who are still there. He didn't leave them to fend for themselves. And let's say, for the sake of the argument, he left. He was gone. How long was he gone? Because this is why it shows that you were not paying attention, because from the time he left to return those objects, what was he gone? In that timeline, how long was he gone? 30 seconds? Maybe 30 seconds. So he left them to fend for themselves for 30 seconds. Remember, they dealt with the issue of time travel, and that time travel doesn't mean what we think it is. And they go through all of the different movies and the ideas that we have in time travel, but that was clearly explained by Banner exactly what the rules of time travel were. Like,
first of all, that's horrible. It's Thanos. And secondly, time doesn't work that way. Changing the past doesn't change the future.
If we go back, we get the stones before Thanos gets them. Thanos doesn't have the stones. Problem solved.
Bingo.
I don't know why everyone believes that, but that isn't true. Think about it. If you travel to the past, that past becomes your future. And your former present becomes the past, which can't now be changed by your new future.
Exactly.
Back to the Future is a bunch of bullshit.
so we see that what we think of time travel and how it's possible is not the way that it is explained and written into the universe, the MCU. So when he left, he did not. I'm sitting here, I'm looking at his face, and it's making me crack up. But when he left, okay, he was gone to that timeline, to that world. He was gone for just a matter of seconds. But when he returned, when he was gone, yes, it was a lifetime to him. but and to return back was just a little bit of time. Okay, a little bit of time that's left. And and anything that he did, okay, while he was gone, we know that that does not affect what was there. That's why he was only gone for a short amount of time, because yes, he's gone, all right, for that amount of time, but he was able to return back into that timeline at another specific, after years of his life, of him traveling back, back in time, returning the things, and then living his life with Peggy. So to get an idea of what that looks like. So how does the timeline work? And there's a guy who put a video out, and I'm going to add a link to this diagram that he shows to his video. But this is his timeline and how all of that time travel worked when it came to all the time traveling that they did, and how it affected the timelines. All you do, you go back in time. Everything that you do in that, when you went back in time, you just start a new timeline, which is basically like another universe. And in every time that you travel back and forth, it just starts basically a new timeline, a new universe, and you could travel back and forth to those different timelines. So this is a good. I like the way that he breaks it down, and it's really plain to see if you look at it.
Let us go through the events of Avengers Endgame and draw out the timeline diagram as we do. Here's the original timeline, where the events of all of the Marvel Cinematic Universe movies have occurred. Infinity War saw Thanos to the snap in 2018. At the beginning of Endgame, we get to know that Thanos has destroyed all the stones. Thor kills Thanos. 5 years pass. Scott returns from the quantum realm and suggests the possibility of time travel. Tony prepares a space-time GPS, and the team splits into 3 groups. Clint, Natasha, Nebula, and Rhodes travel back to 2014 to Morag. They create a new timeline which has an alternate Thanos, Gamora, and Nebula. Natasha and Clint proceed to Vormir. On Morag, the 2 Nebula's neural networks interlock. Rhodes returns with the Power Stone, while Nebula is captured. On Vormir, Natasha sacrifices herself and Clint returns with the Soul Stone. Thor and Rocket travel back to 2013, to Asgard, and create a new timeline. Rocket extracts the ether from Jane and Thor takes his hammer. They return to the original timeline. Tony, Steve, Hulk, and Scott go back to 2012 to New York, and they create a new timeline. Steve takes the scepter from Hydra and fights a version of himself from this timeline. Tony and Scott mess things up and Loki from this timeline escapes with the Tesseract. Hulk gets the Time Stone from the Ancient One. Hulk and Scott return with the Time Stone and the scepter. Tony and Steve go back to 1970, to New Jersey, and they create another new timeline. Tony steals the Tesseract from S.H.I.E.L.D., and Steve steals Pym particles from Hank. The 2 of them return with the Tesseract. Hulk does a snap undoing the effects of Thanos in 2018. The 2014 Nebula travels to 2023 and infiltrates the team. She prepares for the arrival of Thanos from the 2014 timeline. Thanos goes to 2023 with his army. Now, remember, the Thanos of the original timeline was killed in 2018. The 2014 Thanos is a different guy from a different timeline. The epic final battle takes place. Tony snaps and dusts Thanos and his army. Tony dies. After the funeral, Steve prepares to return all the stones to their source timelines. We are not shown how he accomplishes this. But Steve returns the Power Stone to Morag, the Soul Stone to Vormir, the Ether and the Hammer to Asgard, the Mind Stone and Time Stone to New York, and the Space Stone to New Jersey. After that, he decides to go back in time. Presumably, after he went into the ice in 1945 and creates a new timeline. Steve marries Peggy and lives in this timeline, and grows old. This timeline has one Steve in the ice and the other from 2023 married to Peggy. We can assume that after Peggy dies, Steve finally returns to the original timeline dramatically on the bench. He then passes on his shield and legacy to Sam. That brings the film to a close.
So he didn't leave anyone to fend for themselves. And at no point in time was there an absence of a Captain America. And we have to assume, although we don't know what happened in the timeline where he goes back to be with Peggy, if they basically keep him a secret, if he, becomes Captain America during that time, we don't know. And that's going to be, I guess, a secret for a while. The guy's name who made that diagram, his channel is called This Is Barry. I'm going to leave a link in the description so you can go click on the video so you can get that view. And you can give, show some love to his channel, support for his channel, and he does a lot of good work. So I really love that diagram, and I had to show that so that people who have no clue, especially the people who were in the comment sections of this video, if you ever watch this video, you will see that this is how the time travel was affected, and in the movie. And it was not like that. It was not like time travel in the way that we see time travel and think of it.
Because that's what a leader does, apparently. And then, whenever he got back, he had one job, and that was to pass down who was going to be Captain America. And he gave the shield to a nigga who don't have powers, just a nigga with wings and guns. Now, Bucky, on the other hand, had all these crazy skills because he got injected too. It makes perfect sense. It makes perfect sense to just give it to Bucky. But no, can't do that. Got to set a black man up who don't have the skills to do the job. Now everybody's going to look for him to be you, and he can't be you when there was a guy who obviously could do what you could do. So you setting this black man up to lose. Which reminds me why you never did anything when you were Captain America during Jim Crow.
So, I'm only in agreement that they should not have given, that the mantle should have not been passed over to Falcon for different reasons. You are looking at it in the sense that he should not have been the new Captain America because he doesn't have any powers. But your argument is that, well, Captain America really doesn't have any powers. He's just in good shape and he's just more athletic. So what is your point? That fails within your argument that he doesn't have any abilities. We do see Falcon on many occasions where he is fighting against people who are stronger than him, just like you can see where Black Widow and Hawkeye are fighting against people who are clearly more powerful than he is. What is Hawkeye? One of his famous, well-known lines is during Age of Ultron, where he's talking to Wanda and he's talking about, well, you've got this, I can't remember the wording or the word, so I know I'm butchering it, but in essence, you've got basically an evil robot and terrorizing the world, and you've got Hulk, and you've got a god, and you've got all of these people, and he's got a bow and arrow. So but he's still pushing on. He's still fighting. He's still trying to, quote unquote, save the day. So just because he doesn't have powers doesn't mean anything. The idea of Captain America isn't what he's able to do. It's his ability to lead. It's the symbol that he represents. So you don't need to be this ultra powerful person. Someone in the comment sections of his video mentioned that, of course, you're not going to give it to Bucky because Bucky's still a wanted man. And he's still, no one's going to trust him to be Captain America. So, of course, he's not going to turn over the mantle to him. And then you've got Hawkeye. Hawkeye, he's got red on his ledger now because of everything that he did, his vigilantism that he did after the snap. So there's a lot of reasoning behind, unfortunately, why they gave the mantle was given over to Falcon over someone else. But, you know, I believe that it should have been Bucky because he, at least in the comics, he's been the one to take over the mantle and be Captain America in multiple times. So it makes sense. But however, in the MCU, it doesn't make sense because of other reasons. So there, you know, you can make an argument that he could have given it to someone else who has powers, but like I said, Captain America is not a power set. He's an idea, and what makes him useful is his ability to lead the Avengers and his ability to inspire the people who he's around, and that is what he believed that Falcon could do. Whether or not I agree with that, no. So the fact that they're just setting up a black man for failure is just dumb, because then that's saying that you believe that because he doesn't have powers that he can't lead. Okay, that, you know, that's silly. If anything, it's, you know, it's a racial stereotype on your part to say just because he's black that he's not smart enough or he's not capable of doing what Captain America was able to do. So, you know, you're throwing that privilege right back onto onto yourself with Steve Rogers, in that no one else can do what he did, and clearly he could. And we don't know what the outcome, or we don't know if he's going to be able to gain some other kind of abilities. We don't know. Now, yes, Stark is not there, so there's no one besides Banner to be able to create more tech for him to use. So unless there's someone else, that the Shield would be the only other outfit to be able to do that stuff. So ultimately, I feel you failed in your argument that Captain America is the worst hero of all. And to preface it, with your ending, well, finish it up.
I hate this nigga. He is the worst. Who obviously could
We'll
do
go
what
back
you can do. So you setting this
so you
black
can hear
man
that.
up to lose. Which reminds me why you never did anything when you were Captain America during Jim Crow. I hate this nigga. He is the worst hero ever. He can be y'all's hero. Captain America is the worst hero of all time. By far. If you still love him, that's on you.
All right, so just in general, your argument fails in so many levels. And recap, because he was not around. Yes, he was around in Jim Crow, but he was at war, so he was not going to be able to do anything for people suffering through Jim Crow, because he was sent out to war and he was incapacitated and frozen before the war was over. So therefore, he wasn't able to do anything. That's why he didn't do anything during Jim Crow. So, Watto Davis, whatever your name is, this was a very poorly thought out video, and I know it. I get it. You're trying to be funny. I get it. And you're trying to throw that humor in there, but it's extremely flawed. And it just makes you come off as silly and ignorant, and not knowing at all about this storyline, these characters, and anything that has to do with it. Because all you did was just throw out inconsistencies and inaccuracies and lies. So, that's me. That's my video. Tell me what you think. Anything that I missed out. If you're a Captain America enthusiast, like a real Captain America fan, and I missed anything, if you were really in tune to the MCU series, phase 1 through 3, anything that I missed that, or anything that I got incorrect, because I have no problem being corrected if I'm wrong. Just come with facts, not feelings, because care less about your feelings. Facts do not care about feelings. So what do you think about his video, about what he said, about what I said, and ultimately over everything? So that's my time. That's it. This is Logan Oren, the Troll for Truth. Why? Because the truth should mean something.
Trolls roll out.